Welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress podcast, where we explore real estate, self improvement, and how to get better every single day. As always, my name is Adam, and today we're diving into something that most people completely miss when it comes to setting goals. It's not about the goal itself, it's about the identity that achieves it. You don't get what you want, you get what you believe you are. And until you change your identity, your results will always default back to your old patterns. I'm really excited to share this brand new episode with you guys. Let's get right into it. So, a few different things I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. In this first part, I want to talk about the illusion of goal setting. Every year people set goals with good intentions. They write them down, they buy a new planner, maybe they join a new gym. They start strong for a few weeks, but it's so crazy how often they fizzle out. Does that maybe sound familiar to some of you guys? Well, here's what happens most often of the time. They set their goals for the behavior, not for the identity. Once again, they set goals for the behavior, not for the identity. They might say something like, I want to lose weight, instead of saying, I'm the kind of person who does not ever miss workouts. Or maybe they say, I want to make six figures this year, instead of saying something that's more identity based, like, I'm a disciplined professional who tracks every lead and follows up relentlessly. Do you guys see the difference there? One is what you want, the other is who you are. Ed Milet, one of my favorite entrepreneurs and public speakers at this point in his life, he said it best. He said, your life will never outperform your identity. You can't out hustle a self image that doesn't believe you're capable of more. I think that is so powerful. And it's also, though, important to understand that identity is really then what shapes your behavior. So, your brain is always seeking alignment between your actions and your self image. If your identity says, I'm inconsistent, well, you're subconsciously going to find ways to prove yourself right. This is so powerful, you guys. If your identity says, I follow through no matter what, well, your habits are probably going to naturally start matching that. So think of it kind of like a thermostat. Ed Milet talks a lot about this too. If your identity thermostat is set at, let's just say, 72 degrees of success, and you start hitting 90 degrees, well, you're unconsciously going to do something to bring it back down to that 72 degrees. But if you raise your identity setting, your actions will then rise to meet it. Let me just say that again, you guys, just to make sure you understand that. So if your identity thermostat is set, let's just say at 72 degrees of success, and you start hitting 90, well, you're unconsciously going to do something just to bring it back down to 72. So it's always important to understand that you need to raise your identity setting. And if you do that, then your actions will hopefully also rise to meet them. Another very popular influencer, just self-improvement guru, probably the GOAT, greatest of all time, Tony Robbins. He also said one time that the strongest force in human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. So if you want a different result, you need to redefine who you are. Now, the next step to this is what I like to call the 3 steps to create an identity shift. So that's the whole point of this episode today, guys, is how can you start building out this identity and shifting it to one that starts to bring everybody else around you, hopefully up, but also just any goals that you set, anything that you're working hard on, that you're always putting yourself at that higher level to match your identity. So the step 1 of these 3 steps, step 1 is going to be auditing your current identity. Ask yourself some questions. Ask yourself, what beliefs am I currently living out that are limiting me? Write these down. That's the key here too, guys. Write them down. For example, maybe it's something like, I'm not good with money, or I always procrastinate, or maybe it's, I don't have time. Those are all programs. They're not facts. You can rewrite these. It's not something that is defining you. It's just something that currently exists. So it's so important just to audit your current identity, to maybe hopefully identify some of these gaps or areas that you need to improve on, which takes me then to step 2, which is crafting your future identity. So now is when we flip the script. So who do you need to become to live the life you want? And be very specific with this one, you guys. So for example, I'm the kind of person who protects my mornings, or I'm a leader who totally brings energy into every room that I walk into. Or another one might be, I'm the investor who moves decisively on opportunities. See, this now becomes your new standard. And this is so important because this takes us into step 3, the final step, which is acting like it's already true. There's so much power into basically being the person to then become that person later on. So behavior always follows belief. When you start acting like the person you want to become, even before you fully feel it, your brain will start to adapt. And that, my friends, is the power of alignment. Dan Martell, who's probably my favorite entrepreneur right now, he's awesome. He's also a fellow Canadian, which is super cool. He talks about this all the time, and he always says, you don't wait until you feel ready. You act like your way into confidence. So let me say that again. You don't wait until you feel ready. You act your way into confidence. Confidence isn't built by overthinking. It's built by proving to yourself that you can follow through. So those are the three steps. And once we have those, and once you've built out those three steps, then we're going to move into the next one, which is just and maybe it's because I'm in real estate, but I call it the real estate of identity. So let's tie this now into real life. In business and for me in real estate, people get stuck saying things like, I'm just not a very good negotiator, or, owning a small multifamily, a small apartment building. I could never do that. I could never be an investor, a real estate investor. That type of stuff, you guys, that's not truth. That's just identity talk. You can learn negotiation. You can learn real estate investing. But until you believe that you're somebody who does those things, the opportunities will continue to keep passing you by. So if you want to grow your business this year in 2026, start identifying as a business owner, not just maybe a real estate agent. If you guys are into real estate and you're watching or listening to this because you're also in the same industry as me, I'm kind of catering to you guys on this one. And if you guys want maybe more listings in 2026, well, then identify yourself as a marketer, not just a salesperson. If you want to build wealth, like serious wealth, identify yourself as a long-term investor, not just somebody chasing commission checks. You can't build new results on an old identity. That is super, super important and powerful to take away from this episode today, you guys. So we got one more final step here, which is the daily practice of reinvention. So identity, it isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice and something that takes a lot of commitment. So every single morning, you need to remind yourself, this is who I am becoming. Maybe then back it up with small aligned actions to lead yourself into that person that you want to be. So if your new identity is, I'm a fit, focused, and disciplined leader, then start the day like one. I know it sounds basic and simple, but it's so true and so powerful. So wake up early, maybe work out early in the morning, eat clean. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent enough to send your brain evidence that this is who you are now. And soon it'll stop being something you're trying to do. It's just going to be who you are. Love that. That's such a great way to end this episode. So if you guys really got some value out of this, I just want to leave you with this. As you step into 2026, stop focusing on setting more goals. Focus on becoming the person who naturally achieves them. Because when your identity changes, your habits follow. When your habits change, your results change. And when your results change, your entire life begins to transform. Just remember, your goals, they don't create your identity. Your identity creates your goals. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode today on the Pursuit of Progress podcast. My co-host Ben will be back with me shortly, hopefully next week. And guys, I'm super excited for 2026. Hope you are too. If you guys got any value from this episode today, make sure you share it with a friend who also might be ready for that next identity shift. And as always, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep becoming the person your goals require. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye.